Melania Trump's life in the spotlight had been marked by scrutiny. As she faced another accusation, memories of past judgments surfaced. How do we view those thrust into fame? False accusations can strike anyone, even former first ladies. When Melania found herself wrongly accused of theft, she stood at a crossroads. Use her status to silence critics or find another way to prove her innocence. Her decision would inspire millions. But before we reveal her choice, consider, in her position, how would you respond? The answer might surprise you. The sun-dappled streets of New York City bustled as Melania Trump stepped out of her sleek black SUV. Her driver nodded discreetly as she adjusted her sunglasses. For a moment, she paused, absorbing the city's cacophony. With a deep breath, Melania strode towards Bergdorf Goodman. As she entered, cool, perfumed air enveloped her. A sense of nostalgia washed over her, reminding her of simpler times. She savored the fleeting moments of anonymity, knowing they wouldn't last. The store hummed with activity. Melania's eyes swept across gleaming jewelry and artful displays. She moved through the aisles, fingers trailing over silken scarves and soft leather handbags. A sales associate approached, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Can I help you find anything, ma'am?" she asked, voice carefully neutral. Melania shook her head, smiling. "Thank you, I'm just browsing," she replied softly, her accent lilting. As the associate retreated, Melania felt a familiar prickle. She turned, catching a young woman averting her gaze. Whispers rippled through the store. "Is that... It can't be. What's she doing here alone?" Melania's shoulders tensed, but her face remained serene. She'd grown accustomed to the stares. Today was about normalcy, a rare chance to shop like anyone else. Selecting items, Melania headed towards the fitting rooms. Eyes followed her, growing heavier with each step. A security guard's radio crackled nearby. As she reached for the fitting room door, Melania caught her reflection. For a moment, she saw the young model from Slovenia who once dreamed of bright lights and runways. Outside, the store's atmosphere shifted. Employees huddled near customer service, concerned. In the security office, a heated discussion unfolded. "Are you certain?" demanded the store manager, leaning over the monitors. The head of security nodded. "The system flagged it. Look here." He pointed to a grainy image. "She picked up that scarf and it's gone." The manager ran a hand through his hair. "This is Melania Trump. Do you know what kind of PR nightmare this could be?" "Sir, our policy is clear. We treat everyone the same," the security chief insisted. A tense silence fell. The manager's eyes darted between the monitors and the door. "All right," he whispered. "But handle this with extreme caution. If we're wrong..." The thought hung in the air as they prepared to confront one of America's most recognizable women. The fitting room door creaked open, and Melania Trump stepped out, elegant in a navy blue dress. Her eyes swept across the suddenly silent store, catching nervous glances from employees and customers. Something was off. The air felt thick with tension. A security guard approached, his face taut with discomfort. The store manager hovered nearby, eyes darting between Melania and the growing crowd. Melania's Secret Service agent materialized from the throng. "Mrs. Trump," the guard began quietly, "we need to discuss a situation." Melania's eyebrow arched slightly. "What seems to be the problem?" "Our security system has flagged a potential discrepancy. A silk scarf appears to be missing from the inventory." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared, cameras trained on the unfolding drama. Melania stood perfectly still, her face composed but her mind raced. She felt a familiar ache, memories of early days in America when every sideways glance made her question her belonging. Her Secret Service agent stepped forward. "Mrs. Trump, you don't have to submit to this. We can leave now." The store fell eerily quiet, all eyes on Melania. They were waiting for her to pull rank, to storm out indignantly. It would be so easy. But Melania made a decision that surprised even herself. "No," she said softly, "I will cooperate fully." The crowd collectively gasped. Melania turned to the security guard. "What would you like me to do?" The guard blinked, caught off guard. "We'd need to check your belongings in the fitting room, ma'am." Melania nodded, handing over her purse and gesturing to the fitting room. "Please do what you need to do." As the security team began their search, Melania stood tall, her chin held high. She could have left or called her lawyers. Instead, she chose to face the accusation head-on, with dignity and grace. Minutes ticked by. The security guard emerged, his face a mixture of relief and embarrassment. "Mrs. Trump, we've completed our search. There's no sign of the missing scarf. We sincerely apologize for the inconvenience." Melania nodded, accepting her purse back. "Thank you for doing your job," she said clearly. "It's important that everyone is treated equally under the law." With those words, the atmosphere shifted. The judgment in people's eyes gave way to respect, and perhaps a touch of shame at their own rush to conclusions. The store hummed with nervous energy as Melania stood tall, her chin held high. The security guard's words hung in the air, a palpable weight pressing down on everyone present. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Melania's eyes scanned the crowd, noting the mix of curiosity and judgment in their faces. She took a deep breath, her mind racing through possible reactions. The guard shifted uncomfortably, awaiting her response. "I understand your concerns," Melania said, her voice steady and clear. "And I appreciate your dedication to your job. However, I believe there's been a misunderstanding." The onlookers exchanged glances, unsure how to interpret her calm demeanor. Melania's thoughts drifted back to a moment from her early days in America, a memory she'd kept locked away for years. She'd faced public scrutiny before, but this time was different. This time, she had a choice to make. "I'd like to propose a solution," she continued. "Let's retrace my steps through the store together. We can review the security footage and speak with the staff who assisted me." The guard's expression shifted from suspicion to confusion. He glanced at his colleagues, unsure how to proceed. "Mrs. Trump," the store manager interjected, his face a mix of concern and embarrassment. "That's not necessary. We can handle this internally." Melania raised a hand, gently silencing him. "No, I insist. It's important that we resolve this matter transparently and fairly." As she spoke, her phone buzzed in her purse. She ignored it, focusing on the task at hand. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Melania led the way, the security team trailing behind her. She moved with purpose, pointing out each item she'd touched, each person she'd spoken to. "This is where I admired the scarves," she explained in the accessories section, "but I decided against purchasing one today." The security guard nodded, his earlier suspicion giving way to a grudging respect. They ended back at the fitting rooms where the ordeal had begun. "Now," Melania said, turning to face the group, "I believe we've covered everything. Shall we review the security footage?" The manager stepped forward. "Mrs. Trump, I don't think that will be necessary. We've clearly made a mistake, and I cannot apologize enough for the inconvenience and embarrassment we've caused you." Melania's eyes softened. "There's no need for embarrassment. You were doing your job, and I respect that. What matters is how we handle difficult situations when they arise." Her words seemed to resonate with the onlookers. Phones that had been raised to capture her humiliation now lowered, their owners suddenly ashamed of their eagerness to witness a scandal. As the crowd began to disperse, Melania felt the weight of the promise she'd made to herself years ago. A promise born from that long-ago incident, one that had shaped her approach to public life more than anyone realized. She reached for her phone, curiosity getting the better of her. The message that awaited her would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything the public thought they knew about Melania Trump. Melania's fingers hovered over her phone screen, her heart racing as she read the message. She took a deep breath, steadying herself against the fitting room door. The store manager cleared his throat nervously. "Mrs. Trump, I can't apologize enough for this misunderstanding. Is there anything we can do to make this right?" Melania looked up, her eyes focusing on the sea of faces before her. The crowd had grown, their phones still raised. She could see the mixture of curiosity and shame in their expressions. "Actually," Melania said, her voice steady, "there is something you can do." The manager blinked, surprised. "Of course, anything. I'd like to speak with your staff, if that's all right. Everyone, salespeople, custodians, everyone." In the break room, nervous employees had gathered. Melania took a deep breath, her mind racing back to that long-ago incident that had shaped her view of America. "I want to thank you all for your time," she began, air accent lilting the words. "I know this has been an unusual day for everyone." Melania shared her early experiences in America, times she had been judged and misunderstood. She spoke of learning that true strength comes from dignity and grace under pressure. A young employee raised her hand hesitantly. "With all due respect, Mrs. Trump, it's easy to talk about dignity when you have power and money. How does this apply to us?" Melania smiled. "A fair question. Power and money don't shield you from prejudice or misunderstanding. What matters is how we respond to those moments." She explained how each of them had the power to make a difference. Whether you're folding clothes or manning a register, your actions matter. Your kindness matters. As she spoke, the skeptical employee's expression softened. Others nodded, their eyes lighting up with understanding. I hope that my experience today can serve as a reminder, Melania concluded. A reminder to treat others with dignity and respect, no matter who they are or where they come from. The room erupted in applause, startling Melania. She smiled warmly. As she made her way back through the store, Melania felt the shift in energy. The stares were different now, curious but also filled with newfound respect. At the store's entrance, the security guard approached. "Mrs. Trump, thank you for your grace and understanding. You've taught us all a valuable lesson today." Melania smiled, shaking his hand. "Thank you for doing your job with integrity. That's all any of us can ask for." Stepping onto the bustling New York street, Melania felt a sense of peace. She had turned a potentially humiliating experience into something positive and meaningful. As Melania stepped onto the bustling New York sidewalk, a gust of wind caught her hair, momentarily obscuring her vision. When she brushed it aside, her eyes locked with those of an elderly woman standing nearby. The woman's weathered face creased into a smile, and she gave Melania a small, knowing nod. Memories of her grandmother in Slovenia flooded back, her words echoing softly. "True strength lies in how you treat those who can do nothing for you." The sentiment stirred something deep within Melania. She turned back towards the store entrance, determination etched on her face. The security guard who had accused her earlier stood just inside, his posture stiff with lingering embarrassment. Melania called out, her accent lilting the words. The guard's head snapped up, surprise etched across his features as he stepped outside. "I wanted to thank you," Melania said, her voice steady and warm, "for doing your job with integrity. It's not easy to confront someone you believe has done wrong, especially when that person holds a position of power." The guard's shoulders relaxed slightly, but his eyes remained wary. Melania asked about his motivations for becoming a security guard, and his response touched her. "You make a difference every day," she assured him. "Your work matters, Michael. Don't let today's experience make you hesitate in the future." As she spoke, a small crowd gathered. Phones appeared, cameras trained on the unexpected interaction. Michael's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thank you, Mrs. Trump. I won't forget this." Melania squeezed his shoulder gently before turning to leave. The crowd burst into applause. She caught sight of the elderly woman, beaming with pride. As Melania settled into a taxi, her phone buzzed. The message made her heart race, an opportunity she had been secretly planning for years. Her mind whirled with possibilities, the store incident reminding her why she had started this journey. The taxi wove through New York traffic as Melania's thoughts raced ahead. The day's events had reinforced her commitment to her hidden goals. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that her actions could inspire others and create ripples of change. As the city skyline blurred past the window, Melania allowed herself a small smile. The real work, it seemed, was just beginning. Whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it with the same grace and compassion she had shown today. The taxi lurched to a stop, jolting Melania from her thoughts. She blinked, realizing they had arrived at her destination. As she stepped out onto the sidewalk, her phone buzzed. The message glowed on her screen. "Project Butterfly is ready. Are you?" Her breath caught. This was it, the moment she'd been working towards for years. The recent store incident had reminded her why she started this journey, but now the real work was about to begin. Melania's eyes swept the bustling street, taking in the faces of New Yorkers hurrying past. A young woman brushed by, eyes glued to her phone. Melania caught a glimpse of the screen. Social media was ablaze with discussion about her recent actions. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. The unexpected events had been a test of her resolve and ability to handle pressure with grace. Now, it seemed, the universe had decided she was ready for the next phase. Melania's fingers hovered over her phone, ready to respond. She looked up, taking in the towering buildings around her, the endless sea of humanity flowing past. In that moment, she felt both incredibly small and immensely powerful. A nearby newsstand caught her eye. The headlines screamed about climate change, political divisions, social unrest. Melania's grip on her phone tightened. If they only knew what she was about to unleash. She thought back to a fact she'd learned during her White House years. Only 5% of the ocean floor had been mapped and explored. She smiled. Soon, the world would realize how much remained hidden beneath the surface, not just in the ocean, but in the corridors of power. With renewed determination, Melania typed her response. "I'm ready. Let's change the world." As she hit send, a gust of wind swept down the street, catching a discarded newspaper. The front page flashed by. Another story about division, about people's inability to see past their differences. Melania watched it go, her mind racing ahead to the work before her. The store incident had been a reminder of the power of compassion, of treating others with dignity regardless of their status. Now she had the chance to take that lesson and amplify it on a global scale. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a news alert. Comments poured in from around the world, a mix of support and skepticism. Melania felt a wave of emotions: gratitude, determination, and anxiety about the challenges ahead. As she turned to enter the building where her next meeting awaited, Melania caught her reflection in the glass doors. She saw a woman on the cusp of something extraordinary, a woman ready to challenge perceptions, break down barriers, and help heal a divided nation. The doors slid open, welcoming her into the next chapter of her journey. With one last glance at the bustling city behind her, Melania stepped forward, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Melania stepped into the sleek elevator, her heart pounding with anticipation and trepidation. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the polished metal. The woman staring back looked composed, but Melania knew the truth. She was on the precipice of something monumental. Her phone buzzed again. She hesitated before looking at the screen, torn between staying focused and curiosity about the Bergdorf incident fallout. Finally, she relented. Headlines flashed before her eyes, each more sensational than the last. Social media was ablaze with reactions, people from all walks of life sharing their thoughts. Melania's breath caught in her throat. She had known the incident would make waves, but this was overwhelming. As the elevator climbed, a young woman stepped in, her eyes widening with recognition. "Mrs. Trump," she said softly, "I just wanted to say thank you for showing such grace yesterday." Melania smiled, touched by the unexpected kindness. "Thank you," she replied warmly. "We all have moments that test us." The elevator dinged, and Melania stepped out into a quiet hallway, her mind reeling from the virtual chaos in this brief human connection. As she walked towards the conference room, she overheard snippets of conversation about the video and its impact. She paused outside the conference room door, taking a moment to collect herself. Through the frosted glass, she could see her team's silhouettes, waiting expectantly. They had no idea of the storm brewing outside. Melania's hand hovered over the door handle. She realized the Bergdorf incident was a catalyst for change, for conversation, for a new understanding of who she was and what she stood for. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "You've opened a door. Are you ready to step through?" Melania took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. The woman who entered Bergdorf Goodman yesterday was not the same woman standing here now. She had faced public scrutiny and emerged stronger, more determined. With a steady hand, she pushed open the door. The room fell silent as she entered, all eyes turning to her. Melania felt the weight of expectation, of possibility settle onto her shoulders. "Good morning," she said, her voice clear and confident. "We have work to do." As her team leaned in, eager to hear her plans, Melania couldn't help but think of the ripples spreading out from that moment in the store. How far would they reach? And more importantly, what waves of change could she create now? Melania's response to the Bergdorf incident became a blueprint for handling injustice with grace. Her calm demeanor transformed a potentially humiliating situation into a lesson in dignity. Social media buzzed with newfound respect. "Melania Trump just earned my respect. This is what real class looks like. Maybe we've all been too quick to judge her." The incident sparked conversations about prejudice and second chances, reminding us of our shared humanity. Melania's actions offered hope in a world divided by snap judgments. Consider, how can we apply this lesson in our daily lives? When facing unfair treatment, pause and ask, could my response turn adversity into an opportunity for growth?